Story 1. So it was late. I had just left my cousin's house. He's one of those guys who always talks about ghosts, you know? Every time we hang out, he's like, "You ever hear about the woman in white? Or the man without a face?" I'd just laugh and tell him to stop watching so many horror movies. But that night, I couldn't laugh. I was driving home, and it was one of those long, dark roads. No street lights, no cars, just you and the road ahead. I don't even remember what time it was, but it had to be past midnight. The kind of time when your thoughts start to mess with you. I remember feeling this weird chill, even though my car's heater was blasting. I thought maybe I was just tired. Anyway, I was driving, and out of nowhere I see this figure on the side of the road. It looked like a person, but they weren't moving, just standing there staring at the trees. I slowed down, not because I wanted to stop or anything, but, you can't just ignore that. As I got closer, I realized it was a woman. She had long black hair, so long it almost touched the ground. Her clothes looked old, like something my grandma might have worn back in Laos. She wasn't doing anything, just standing there, not even turning to look at me. I rolled down my window a little just to see if she needed help, and I called out, "Hey, you okay?" She didn't answer, she just stood there, her head tilted like she was listening to something. That's when I noticed her hands. They were at her sides, but they weren't normal. They looked wrong, like her fingers were too long, too thin, and her nails were sharp, like claws. I don't know why I didn't just drive off right then. Something about her made me freeze, and then, slowly, she turned to face me. Her face, man, I can't even describe it. It wasn't scary like you'd think, not at first. She looked kind of sad, like she'd been crying for a long time, but her eyes, they were empty, no whites, no pupils, just black. I didn't even think. I just hit the gas and sped off. My heart was pounding and my hands were shaking on the wheel. I kept telling myself it was just some weird prank or maybe I was seeing things, but deep down, I knew it wasn't that. A few minutes later, I realized I hadn't seen a single car since I left my cousin's house. That's when it hit me. I didn't even know where I was. The road seemed familiar at first, but now it felt like I was driving in circles. I checked my GPS, but the screen wouldn't load, just that spinning circle like it was searching for a signal. I kept driving, hoping to see a sign or something, but instead I saw her again. The same woman. This time she was standing in the middle of the road, her head tilted like before. I slammed on the brakes and my car skidded to a stop just a few feet away from her. I don't know what came over me, but I was so mad, like who the hell does she think she is, standing there like that? I rolled down my window and yelled, "What do you want?" She didn't answer, but her head slowly straightened and she pointed at me. Just one finger, long and bony, with that sharp nail. My chest felt tight like I couldn't breathe, and then she started walking toward me. Her steps were slow, but every time she moved, it was like the space between us got smaller and smaller. I tried to put the car in reverse, but the engine stalled. She got closer and I could see her face again, but this time, it wasn't sad. It was twisted, like she was smiling, but not in a human way. Her mouth stretched too far and her teeth were yellow. I don't even know how, but I managed to get the car started. I threw it in drive and floored it. My tires squealed as I tried to go around her, and for a second I thought I'd hit her, but when I looked back, she was gone, just gone, like she was never there. I didn't stop driving until I saw the lights of a gas station. I pulled in, parked, and just sat there, trying to calm down. I told myself it was all in my head, that I was just tired and seeing things. But then, I looked in my rearview mirror. There was a handprint on the back window. I don't know what I saw that night, but I haven't been back to that road since. My cousin says it might have been a wandering spirit, one of those lost souls who didn't make it to the other side. I don't know if that's true, but one thing's for sure, I'll never drive alone at night again. story 2. I'm going to tell you about this thing that happened to my cousin Lee. Okay, so Lee's the kind of guy who works hard during the week and spends his weekends doing whatever he wants. He's always been like that, you know? No wife, no kids, just him living life how he likes. One weekend, he decided to head out to this small town in Wisconsin to visit his friend's family. They're Hmong like us, and you know how tight-knit we are. Everyone's kind of like extended family, even if you're not blood-related. Anyway, Lee drives out there, spends the whole day hanging out, eating and catching up. It's already late by the time he decides to head back, like midnight or something. His friend offers to let him crash at their place, but Lee's stubborn and says he's fine to drive. So he gets in his car and starts heading back. Now here's where it gets weird. Lee takes the back roads to save time, even though they're dark as hell and surrounded by trees. You know the kind I'm talking about? The roads where your headlights only light up like 10 feet ahead and everything else is just black? Yeah, those. He's driving, music low, windows cracked, trying to stay awake, when he notices something in the middle of the road up ahead. At first he thinks it's an animal, maybe a deer or a raccoon, because, you know, it's out in the country and that's pretty common. But as he gets closer, he realizes it's not an animal, it's a person. Just standing there, not moving. Lee slows down and stops a little ways away because, who wouldn't? He's not about to run someone over. He rolls down his window to yell out, "Hey, you okay?" But the person doesn't respond. They're wearing this long, traditional outfit like a funeral dress or something. It's old and dirty and it hangs off their body like it doesn't fit right. Now Lee's no fool. He knows about the stories, the kind elders tell about ghosts on the road, especially if you're traveling at night. He starts to feel uneasy, but he tries to brush it off. He honks the horn, thinking maybe that'll snap them out of it. The person finally moves. Slowly they turn their head toward him, and Lee freezes. It's a woman. Her face is pale and smooth like porcelain, but her eyes are empty, like no pupils, no whites, just black. He said it was like looking into something out of this world, and it made his stomach drop. She doesn't walk or step closer, she just stares at him. Lee panics. He slams his foot on the gas and swerves around her, speeding down the road as fast as he can. He's gripping the wheel so tight his knuckles turn white, and he keeps glancing in his rearview mirror. But here's the thing. No matter how fast he goes, he sees her in the mirror, standing in the middle of the road, getting farther and farther away, but still watching him. When he finally looks back to focus on the road, he sees her again, right in front of his car. He swears she wasn't there a second ago, but there she is, standing just inches from his bumper. Lee slams on the brakes so hard he almost sends himself flying through the windshield. The only thing stopping him was his seat belt. The car skids to a stop, and when he looks up, she's gone. By now, Lee's sweating. His heart's racing and he's muttering under his breath, praying to anyone who'll listen. He decides to just keep driving and not stop for anything. No more looking in the mirrors, no more second guessing. Just drive. But it doesn't end there. As he's driving, the air in the car starts to feel weird, like something sitting on his chest, making it hard to breathe. He notices the windows fogging up, even though it's not cold out. And then, out of nowhere, he hears it. A faint whisper coming from the back seat. "Lee!" He nearly jumps out of his skin. He doesn't dare look back. He just grips the wheel tighter and keeps going. But the whisper comes again, louder this time. "Lee!" He's shaking, trying to keep his eyes on the road, when suddenly the whisper turns into a scream. It's loud, ear-piercing, and it's coming from right behind him. He slams on the brakes again, this time pulling over to the side of the road. He sits there, engine running, hands gripping the wheel, and finally, he decides to look. There's nothing there. The back seat is empty. No one's in the car but him. But the moment he lets out a sigh of relief, he feels it, a cold hand on his shoulder. He doesn't think. He just bolts out of the car, leaving the door wide open. He stands there on the side of the road, looking around, but there's no one there. The car is empty. The road is empty. Just him in the dark. Lee doesn't know how long he stands there, but eventually he gets back in the car and drives the rest of the way home without stopping. When he gets home, he doesn't sleep. He just sits in his living room, with all the lights on, trying to make sense of what happened. To this day, Lee refuses to take back roads at night. He says it's not worth the risk. And honestly, after hearing his story, I don't blame him. That's it for now. I hope you enjoy this story. If you did, check out more of my videos on the screen above or visit my channel for even more. Don't forget to subscribe for future videos. Stay safe and take care.